Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. For just over a month now, Glasgow has had its low emission zone, and you'd think they'd be willing to publish all the information. After all, it acts as a deterrent and hopefully reducing the number of people with their old cars from coming into the city rather than the dirty cars. They're still encouraging dirty cars in, but the older, cleaner cars aren't being allowed in. But of course, they don't want to do that. They don't want to publish the information because it was never set up to be anything other than a money-making operation, nothing to do with air quality. And so they were pressed, where are the cars being found? What is the area in which most people are breaking the rules? They're not publishing it. A freedom of information request went in, and they're denying that, and they're trying to say what grounds they're denying it on. We'll have a look at that in the piece. Because they don't want to do the environmental information request because that actually kind of forces them to release the information. So they're trying to get around it by making sure that they can not report it under freedom of information rules. Very, very sneaky. They do like their secrets, don't they? Because they know full well that if it was ever found out that it was nothing to do with environmental issues, but everything to do with financial issues, then the whole scheme would be seen as a massive scam, which of course it is. So we're going to take a look at this piece now. I'm not going to go too much in depth in it. There's a couple of bits that are quite telling that we need to look at because it just shows again how shady and secretive the SNP are at every level of government. Here goes. So the secretive SNP Council refuses to reveal Glasgow low emission zone figures, and he says it will never say where vehicles were caught. Why? Why is it so secretive and shady? It's obvious, because it's got nothing to do with air quality, everything to do with money. Because the SNP are desperate for money. Lots and lots of money, because they have blown through it on all these stupid vanity projects and the push for independence. And that is why they won't say where the big areas are that they're catching people, because then people will avoid it and they won't make quite so much money. Nothing, as I say, to do with air quality. So the low emission zone was enforced from the start of June, but the City Council has refused to say how many drivers were caught in non-compliant vehicle in the first 4 days. Why are they so shady? Why? Anyway, basically, let's just do a bit of this now. So bosses at SNP run Glasgow City Council, because of course it's SNP, have slapped a secrecy notice on the number of drivers caught breaching the controversial new low emission zone. Now, another reason is if you have a secrecy, you're not telling people how many are caught. Surely, if you want to encourage people to keep their dirty old motor cars away from the city centre, you would absolutely tell people, we have caught 48 people on the first day, or we have caught 127 people, or whatever. Because that would then act as a deterrent. But here's the thing. They don't want to deter people. They need people to go in their older cars. They absolutely desire it above all else. So they can go, fine, slap money, money, money. That's why they're not releasing it. There should be a law that this information must be published. They know the information's there. There's nothing stopping them publishing it unless there are nefarious means for not doing so. And boy, we know absolutely that there are. The local authority is refusing to divulge how many £60 penalty notices it issued in the first few days of the scheme. Disclosing the information requested, it said, would substantially prejudice the effective conduct of public affairs. No! Publishing how many have been done would effectively make the scheme more effective, because people could see that there was a genuine punishment for doing it, and they would not do it. Which tells you that they don't want to publish it because they don't want to reveal how many people are getting punished, because they don't want to disencourage people from going in, because they need the money. Straight up. You can see through this sham straight away. Opposition politicians said it was vital to divulge the number of offenders so that the merits of the scheme could be properly assessed. How do you know the scheme's working if you're not publishing the data? Scottish Conservative Shadow Transport spokesman Graham Simpson said, Glasgow's low emission zone has been implemented in a way that is both haphazard and draconian. It's also completely ineffective because it's got nothing to do with the emissions of the cars, as I've said before. It's all to do with age. It is actually basically saying we don't want poor people in the city. You know, you are effectively banning older cars from poor, who tend to be owned by poor people. So it's very divergent on that, isn't it? It turned out that many of the City Council's own vehicles, he said, were non-compliant, while charities and businesses are being penalised for going about their business. The least we should expect is that there's proper data and analysis to check that it is working as intended. Well, it won't. They won't release that because it is working exactly as intended. It's bringing in lots of money that they don't have to say. Well, in actual fact, they do, because the results must be published by law. All income from a council in terms of fines and things like this are legally must be published, and they must have a line. Every single income stream must have its own line in the audited accounts. So we will know the total for the year when they publish those audited accounts. And you can just simply extrapolate down to an average monthly and daily rate, can't you? So it seems very strange that they're not going to release the information. It was also disclosed last month that the owners of foreign registered vehicles which breach emission levels will be exempt from punishment. It doesn't matter what their exemption. Their emission levels are immaterial because the ban isn't done on emission levels. This is the really stupid thing. You could buy a brand new car that pumps out 3 gallons of crap every day. It wouldn't matter. It's a new car and therefore it's good because you're rich. That's how they are doing this. Anyway, let's say if you've got this foreign car, they can't test it because they don't have access to the foreign registries. So, hey, just drive around in I'll go to Ireland, go to the south of Ireland, buy a car, come over, Lance Stranraer, drive it over, and Bob's your uncle. You can drive around in the middle of Glasgow. Nobody cares. You can't get fined because they don't have access to the Irish registrations. Anyway, it used 2 exemptions to deny the request for information, which it decided to consider under the Freedom of Information legislation rather than environmental information regulations. Now, they chose that deliberately because they knew. EIRs are much more difficult to refuse, with the law insisting on an overarching presumption in favour of publication. And so they said, it's a Freedom of Information request. So, just simply put in environmental information request because it is absolutely important that these, and vitally important that these figures are released. And you have to ask why. Why are the SNP refusing to publish the figures? But then we know. The response stated, and this is what they said, this is why they said they're not going to publish these figures under Freedom of Information. Due to the significant numbers of inquiries received regarding the low emission zone infringements and penalty charges issued since enforcement began, individual responses would require disproportionate levels of staff resources. No, they wouldn't. Put it on a website. There you go. Bang. It takes one person, 10 minutes, done. Don't cut the cod. Don't lie. Publish it on the website. Anyway, furthermore, in respect of your request to provide the exact time, location and reason for each offence, we take the view that this information is exempt from a request. You can take the view. Let's take it in court and see what the court says. Of the Freedom of Information Act. In other words, in our opinion, disclosure of the information would or would likely to substantially prejudice the effective conduct of public affairs. This is because the effective operation of Glasgow low emission zone as a deterrent to entry by non-compliant vehicles may be compromised by public information on currently active enforcement locations. Rubbish. Rubbish. Look at the speed cameras. The location of them is published every year. Whenever they put a new one in, they publish the location of that camera. That is how, your sat-navs and things know the locations of the cameras. They paint the cameras bright yellow so that you can't miss them. And yet people still get caught. Why is it okay to publish the location of speed cameras and paint them yellow and all this, and yet you're being so shady over the information on this zone? That's because you don't get the money from the speed cameras, but you damn well get the money from this. You are there. You've got nothing to do with low emission zones, low emissions and air quality, everything to do with money, and you're targeting the poor. it is not very good when you have an SNP local government that is deliberately targeting poorer people and pushing poorer people into poverty. Why not target those who can afford it, the ones with the bigger cars, the gas guzzlers, the ones with the higher emissions? No. Not the SNP way. They want to drive those who aren't well off, those who can't afford a new car. They're the ones they're punishing. It's discriminatory and it's wrong. But what else do you expect from the SNP? I would say it's actually quite evil, but that's just me. Anyway, I shall round off and I shall come up and we will finish this video. It seems clear that the SNP Council of Glasgow are slimy, odious, sneaky, secretive, money-grubbing slugs. They're not doing this for any claims of air quality. Look at the evidence. They're not doing it on emissions, they're doing it on age of car. Therefore, it's got nothing to do with air quality, it's to do with money. They're not saying how many people get done, which would act as a deterrent, because they don't want to know that anyone's getting done, so people aren't reminded of it, because it's money. They're not telling you the locations, because you might avoid them, because they need money. Everything about this is money. Nothing about this is about air quality. Age of car gives it away. And so you're left there with this perhaps illegal thing, because it isn't set up for air quality. It's set up purely for cash raising ability. Therefore, it's not what the voters were told it was for. It is therefore illegal. And it needs a court challenge and it needs to be completely abandoned. Until they make the rule that it is the emissions level of the car rather than the age of the car. But of course, this isn't anything to do. This is all about discrimination. It is economic discrimination. They're discriminating against the lower paid, the poorer people who can't afford to go out and buy compliant cars, because they don't want them in the city. They want them used to staying in their zone outside, because it's all part of that preparation, that salami slicing for the 15-minute ghettos that seems to be the direction of travel. And so we've got to reject it. So somebody needs to get around. We need a class action. We need someone to go, have the balls to take the council to court to say that this is not a low emission zone. This is an old car, anti-old car zone, because the whole filter is nothing on emissions and everything on age. And therefore, it is a money-raising exercise and it is discriminatory against the poorer. It's economic discrimination. And that should be enough to get it thrown out. Please God, somebody take it up and run with that. Anyway, I shall stop now. Thank you very much for watching. If you aren't yet a subscriber, now would be an excellent time to subscribe. I know most of my viewers, about 70% of my regular viewers, haven't subscribed. So do please subscribe. Hit the bell. That way you know when the next one comes out. Because some of the topics, they kind of hide the topics and you don't necessarily know. And until next time, though, stay safe, stay well, and screw them all, take them to court, get it overturned, and show them up for the money-grabbing little slugs that they all are. And goodbye.